1,000 years ago, a Viking raider was leaner, stronger, and more alive at 40 than most modern men are at 25. And here's the part that should bother you. He had no gym, no supplements, no blue light glasses, none of the things you've been told you need. Yet something is wrong with modern men right now, and almost nobody will say it out loud. We are the safest, richest, most comfortable men who have ever lived. And we are also the most tired, the most anxious, the weakest, the most alone. We've never had more. And somehow, we've never felt worse. Now, the easy answer is that it's because you're lazy, that you just need more discipline. But that's a lie, and it lets the real problem off the hook. The truth is buried 1,000 years in the past, in how a Viking woke, ate, moved, and slept. Because your body was built for that world, not this one. In the next few minutes, I'll show you 7 things the Vikings did every single day. 7 habits that fix almost everything wrong with the modern male body and mind. Everyone backed by hard science, not myth. Subscribe and stay to the end. Because this isn't 7 tricks, it's one system, and it only works whole. But before the 7, you need to see the problem clearly, because it's bigger than you think. For nearly 200,000 years, the human body was shaped by a single kind of life. Hard movement, real hunger, cold, sunlight, a tight group of people who needed you. That world built your genes. Then, in about 150 years, we deleted all of it, and our bodies never got the memo. Scientists have a name for what happened next. They call them the diseases of civilization: heart disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure. Conditions that were rare or almost unknown for most of human history, and are now the leading causes of death in the modern world. Researchers who study this call it evolutionary mismatch. Ancient hardware, modern environment, and the gap between them is making you sick. You can actually see it when you look at the few groups still living the old way. The Tsiman, a forager people in the Bolivian Amazon, have some of the lowest rates of heart disease ever recorded, and their brains shrink with age far slower than ours. They're the same species as you, in a different world, with radically healthier hearts. So, this isn't about becoming a Viking, it's about understanding what your body is still starving for. Now let's be clear about one thing, because it matters. The Vikings were not superhuman, and they did not live long. The average life expectancy in the Viking Age was only around 35. But that number hides the real story. It was crushed down by babies and children dying, brutal in every pre-modern society. A Viking who survived into his teens could often expect to reach 50, and the strong ones went well beyond it. And in their prime, they were formidable. When an Arab envoy named Ibn Fadlan met a band of these Norsemen trading on the Volga River in the year 922, he wrote that he had never seen bodies more perfect, tall as palm trees, ruddy and strong. And here's the twist: what killed them is exactly what we've beaten. Battle wounds, an infected cut, a hard winter, a bad birth, things a modern hospital handles without a second thought. But the slow killers, the heart disease, the diabetes, the despair filling our clinics today, barely touched them. We solved their problems, and then we built brand new ones they were immune to. That's the trade nobody talks about. And these 7 habits are how you take back the good half without giving up the modern world. So let's get to the first habit. They never stopped moving. The Viking didn't train for 1 hour and sit for 15. His whole day was movement. Rowing, hauling, splitting wood, walking miles over rough ground, carrying loads. No modern man touches from 1 week to the next. Scientists call this neat, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. All the movement that isn't a workout. And it turns out this constant low-level effort does more for your heart, your blood sugar, and your waistline than any gym session bolted onto a sedentary life. This is the part people get wrong. You don't have a workout problem. You have a stillness problem. You sit to work, sit to travel, sit to relax. Your body reads that stillness as a threat. The fix isn't another program. It's motion, all day. Walk before you scroll. Carry your own weight. Take the stairs like they're free training, because they are. But movement is only half the equation. Because you can move all day and still fall apart if you're feeding your body the one thing it was never built to handle. And we hand it to ourselves 3 times a day, which brings us to the second habit. They ate food that rots. Look at what was actually on a Viking's plate. Fish, meat, eggs, milk and cheese, berries and roots when the season gave them, and almost no sugar because refined sugar simply didn't exist. Picture the actual meal, a slab of dried cod, hard cheese, coarse bread, a handful of bitter berries. Food that filled you and then let you stop. The result? They were lean and hard by default, because their food had nothing engineered into it to make them overeat. Now walk down any supermarket aisle. Most of it wouldn't rot in a month, because it was built in a factory to be eaten forever and never satisfy you. That's the machine driving modern obesity. Food designed to beat your appetite instead of feed it. The habit to steal is simple. Eat food that goes bad. Protein first. So now you're moving all day and eating real food. Your body's fed and working. But it's still soft because it's missing a kind of stress it was built to expect, and that we've spent a century designing out of our lives. Which brings us to habit 3. They lived in the cold. A Norse winter did not care about your comfort. Wind off the water. Ice on the fjord. Cold that got into your bones and stayed there. The Viking couldn't escape it, so his body adapted to it. We've engineered the opposite. 21 degrees, every room, every season. Your body never has to work to keep you warm anymore, and a system that's never challenged slowly gets weaker. Deliberate cold is what scientists call a hormetic stressor, a small, controlled dose of stress that makes the body come back tougher. The same principle behind lifting a weight, a short, cold shower, a walk in the winter without bundling up like it's an emergency. Let your body do its job again. So cold was one signal from the natural world that kept the Viking sharp. But there was another, quieter one, and it controlled everything from his sleep to his mood to his hunger, without him ever knowing it was there. Which brings us to habit 4. They followed the sun. The Viking had no alarm clock, no ceiling light, no phone glowing at midnight. His day was ruled by one thing, the sun. Bright light at dawn, firelight and darkness at night. Nothing in between. That rhythm isn't a nice to have. It's the master clock for your entire body, your sleep, your hormones, your hunger, your mood. Morning light sets it. Artificial light at night smashes it. And most modern men live in a permanent, low-grade jet lag they can't feel but can't escape. You can undo it almost for free. Get real sunlight into your eyes in the first hour of your day. Then, at night, kill the bright lights and put the screen down. Let darkness be dark again. And that darkness did a job we've forgotten it was ever meant to do. It told the body the day was over, the signal to finally power down. But the modern nervous system never gets that signal. It just keeps running. Which brings us to the 5th habit. They earned their rest. Here's the paradox of modern life. You're exhausted and wired at the same time, tired all day, restless at night, and no amount of sleep seems to fix it. The Vikings didn't have that problem, because their nervous systems ran on a rhythm we've broken. Hard effort, then real rest, danger, then a fire, and a feast, and a long stillness. We've replaced that with something your brain was never built for. a Nobel-winning scientist named Nico Tinbergen described what he called supernormal stimuli, artificial triggers so intense they hijack an instinct that evolved for something far milder. That's your phone. That's the endless feed. Every notification, a tiny hit your ancestors never faced, keeping your stress system switched on all day long. And no, you don't necessarily need a dopamine detox. You need what the Viking had: real exertion that earns real rest, long stretches of boredom your brain can finally settle into, effort and recovery, not a flat line of low-grade stimulation that never lets you charge or discharge. But here's what almost everyone misses about real recovery. The deepest kind isn't physical at all. You can fix your training, your food, your sleep, and still feel hollow, because we've cut out the one thing that steadied a Viking's whole nervous system without him even trying. Which brings us to habit 6. They belonged. This is the one modern men underrate the most, and it might be the deadliest to lose. A Viking was never alone. He lived inside a tight web of people, a crew, a clan, a hall, who ate together, worked together, and depended on each other to survive. Belonging wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was the whole point. They even wrote it down. In the Havamal, the Old Norse poem of hard-won wisdom, there's an image that lands 1,000 years later. A lone fir tree, standing out on a bare hill. No shelter, no cover, slowly withering. That, the poem says, is a man without people. They understood in verse what we're only now proving in laboratories. Now here's the science, and it's staggering. In 2023, the US Surgeon General issued a formal advisory calling loneliness an epidemic. His conclusion, drawn from decades of research led by scientist Julianne Holt-Lundstad, is that being socially disconnected raises your risk of early death at a level comparable to smoking around 15 cigarettes a day. Isolation alone lifts the risk of premature death by roughly a third. Your loneliness is doing to you what a pack-a-day habit does, and modern life quietly engineers it. Screens instead of faces, a group chat instead of a table. The Viking fix is unglamorous, hard, and it works. Real people in the same room, a shared meal, and a crew who'd notice if you vanished. Build that, and you've done more for your lifespan than any supplement on Earth. And yet, even a man surrounded by his people can slowly go to waste. Because there's one last piece. The one that gave every other habit on this list a reason to exist in the first place. Which brings us to the last habit. They had a reason to be strong. The Viking never had to find motivation. He didn't need a morning routine to feel like a man. His strength had a purpose baked into it, a family to protect, a crew that depended on his back, a role only he could fill. His body mattered because his people needed it. Strip that away, and something in a man goes quiet. You see it everywhere now. Men who retire and fade within a year, men who lose their role and lose themselves with it. And the research keeps finding the same thing. A strong sense of purpose tracks with longer, healthier lives, while the loss of it is one of the fastest routes to decline. We weren't built to train for the mirror. We were built to be needed. So take on something heavier than yourself. A person to protect, a craft to master, a duty that makes your strength mean something. Purpose is the engine. The other 6 are just fuel. And that's the secret the whole video has been building to. Not one of these 7 works alone. That's the thing we actually lost. The whole operating system. We took it apart, piece by piece, and traded it for comfort. And comfort, it turns out, is quietly killing us. The good news is, you get a choice he never had. You can put the old operating system back and keep the hospital, the heating, and the 1,000 years of progress too. That's not going backward. That's taking the best of both. The Viking way exists to recover what modern life made us forget. Pick one of these 7, start today, and become the kind of man your body was always built to be.